So a bit of background and context to the Assembly and what its remit is, why it's been set up. So I'd like to introduce Phil Norrey. He's the chair of the Devon Climate Emergency Response Group, and he's going to talk a bit about the background. So over to you, Phil.
Yep. Thanks very much. And just to let everybody know that Emily Reid is doing my slides for me, partly because I'm not. It's like some of the rest of you. My internet is not entirely stable, so if I do drop out, we'll be able to carry on without me. As you've heard, I'm Phil Norrey. I'm chair of the Devon Climate Emergency Response Group and chief executive for the County Council. And the first thing I really want to say to you is a massive thank you for your commitment to this process. It's a hugely important part of the work of Devon's response to the climate emergency, and really without the opportunity to test ideas with a broad cross-representation of the public, we really don't have that kind of legitimacy that we would otherwise have to the work that we've been doing. So this is actually a really important point for us, and I'll just talk about where it fits into the work that's been done so far. Emily's put up the first slide, and as you can see, the Devon Climate Emergency Response Group is an umbrella for many organisations in Devon. You'll see them up there. I'm not going to rehearse them all, but all the principal local authorities in Devon, Environment Agency, the university, the national parks, private sector partners such as the NFU, utilities, the NHS, Devon and Cornwall Constabulary all come together in this group to really ensure that we've got a coordinated approach in our response, and that we put all the weight of our organisations behind what's going to be a hugely important task. We've got a mission, which is up there, creating a resilient net zero carbon Devon, where people and nature can thrive. And we have, right from the start of the very early days, wanted to link climate emergency with biodiversity, and I think that's become ever more apparent that biodiversity is a strongly correlated issue. We know about species depletion on the planet, and we know that has to be reversed, as well as the potential impacts of climate change. So we wanted to involve that important element of biodiversity and the broader environment in our work, and also, as well as aiming for net zero emissions, we recognise that there's already a degree of climate change baked into the next few decades, and we want to ensure that Devon is well prepared to meet the challenges of a different and warmer climate in the coming decades. So those are the three elements for us, and the next slide will show how we're structured. I think, if that's okay, Emily, if you can put that one up. Yeah, we've got the response group, which I chair, and has all those major organisations on it, and that's the sort of guiding hand for the tactical group, which is full of practical people who are doers, who actually get on with the work under our sort of overview. And the tactical group has underneath it the Net Zero Task Force and the Climate Impacts Group, and I'll talk a little bit about those two groups in a moment. So next slide, please, Emily. The Impacts Group, as I said, really important, thinking about them. You may have heard in the news last week, report, an independent group which says that the UK is actually woefully unprepared for the impacts of climate change. And in Devon, we want to be ahead of the game, and I think the work of this group is actually helping to put us ahead of most areas of the UK in terms of a coordinated response, working with our partners in Cornwall as well. So we want to produce a climate adaptation plan, identifying the key risks across a number of themes: health, environment, our infrastructure, and also our economy. and understanding what we need to do as a community to be more prepared for warmer, wetter weather, more intense storms, rising sea levels, all those things that we're already beginning to see, aren't we? I mean, certainly in terms of the weather patterns of the past few years, we know we're experiencing much longer periods of wet weather, and we're also experiencing some odd impacts, such as some very sort of dry periods as well. So we know that we might have the ironic position of having both water shortages and severe flooding incidents. Moving on to the Net Zero Task Force, which is the second of the two real doing groups. The Net Zero Task Force has been instrumental in helping us get to where we are and sort of framing the work that you'll be doing on the Citizens' Assembly. We've deliberately brought together a group of varied specialists under the chairing of Patrick Devon Wright from the University of Exeter. He is one of the experts on the International Panel for Climate Change. In particular, his field of expertise is an international world leader on community and citizen engagement in relation to climate change. We're really lucky in Exeter. We've got 5 of the world's top 21 climate scientists at Exeter University, and we've got a bigger concentration of climate scientists in Exeter than any other city in Europe, of the top 1,000 climate scientists. That's great, and we're really able to draw on that expertise. The Net Zero Task Force started the process of producing the Devon Carbon Plan, and you will be instrumental in that process to identify how and when we can, as a county, become carbon neutral. And this carbon plan will be like an umbrella plan for things that all organisations across the county, all public sector organisations across the county, and many private sector organisations, town and parish councils, community groups, can all see how they fit into a broader picture for the whole county of Devon through the Devon Carbon Plan. So the process, I'm not going to rehearse this too much. We started the process in 2019 in the world before the pandemic, and as I'm sure you're aware, from the timetable has been severely affected in the past year or so. You would have been meeting in person in a Citizens' Assembly last year if we'd have been able to progress in the way we wanted to. As you see, that process started back in 2019 with a call for evidence, a series of thematic hearings looking at the key aspects through which we're going to have to meet the climate change, or the net zero carbon challenge. So food, land and sea, very important for us in Devon. The built environment, mobility, energy and waste. And then there was a summary hearing looking at a series of other issues such as spatial planning, behaviour change, procurement and industrial strategy. So we had that sort of start with evidence gathering, experts contributing to the process, climate summit back in November 2019. We involved secondary schools, and all of this process led to the production of our draft interim carbon plan, which was published on the 7th of December last year. And we did that because we didn't want to hang around. There were some things that were going to be pretty clear actions and things we needed to do. And there were some things that probably we needed some more consultation on, and we needed some more in-depth engagement with the public at large. And that's really what you're here to do as part of the Citizens' Assembly, to tackle some of those issues that we've left unanswered in the interim plan at stage 1. So the interim carbon plan at the moment provides a framework for us to get to net zero by 2050 at the latest. Of course, we've got an ambition to bring that forward as far and as fast as we can. But at the moment, we're looking at what, with the current frameworks, international and national frameworks, we think is realistically achievable. It describes what we need to do to overcome the challenges. It shows the opportunities and the associated benefits, particularly economic and social and health benefits of tackling climate change. And we've made clear it's a plan for everyone. in Devon. It's not just about public sector. It's not a bureaucratic thing. It's about helping people to take action in their own lives, in their own families, in their own communities, and provide some support and guidance to do that. And lastly, but not leastly, and certainly probably most importantly for our purposes, the interim plan, as I said earlier, indicates those issues which we actually need to explore further and in depth, so that we can get to a position on some knotty issues, which we can then take to wider public consultation. So we've always envisaged having a climate assembly, a citizens' assembly, as part of the process. We actually agree with Extinction Rebellion in terms of the need for citizen engagement in all of this, and actually I think we've had very positive responses in terms of the approach we've taken. As I said, we would have done it earlier, and we would have done it in person, but obviously other events got in the way. You are a 70-strong panel of Devon residents. Whilst you're a representative sample, you are your own people, you're individuals, you'll have your own views, and that's absolutely critical. We want you to be yourselves in this process. We don't want you to say what you think we want to hear or what you think others might want to hear. You're here really to take part in a very active discussion, as I'm sure has been made clear to you. We've not just done this sticking our fingers in the air and saying how do we pull together a citizens' assembly. As I said, we've obviously got this vast reservoir of expertise in the university, exemplified by Professor Devon Wright, and ex-university has advised us all the way through, drawing on very extensive research on and knowledge of what's been happening across the world in terms of citizens' assemblies, what's worked, what hasn't worked, how you put them together. So hopefully this process has been really informed by best practice from across the globe over the past few years in citizens' assemblies. And also we're evaluating the process. So we're quite excited by doing this. We know there have been other citizens' assemblies at various scales in the UK, but we think that ours is set up in such a way that hopefully it can provide a model for others in future, and the university is doing the evaluation of how it worked and did we really achieve what we wanted to do through engaging you. So moving on, please, Emily. So as I said, we need your help really to gauge the temperature out there, to get your views, to understand first of all your kind of as a group of Devon citizens, your commitment and your feeling about us as a community, a broader community, acting on climate change and its importance and significance. And we want you to consider a number of big challenges that are quite germane to us in Devon, and these are to some extent Devon specific, because we don't want this to be an anywhere plan. We do want it to be a Devon plan. And I always say, one of my former colleagues used to say, call something called the Somerset test, which was, when we said something about Devon, could we just as easily be talking about Somerset? And then we had to reflect some of the particularities of our county, which is a wonderful place, as you all know. So the first one is a large rural county where people are, and have been certainly for the past 4 or 5 decades, quite significantly dependent on the car and the internal combustion engine. How can we encourage people to reduce car usage, or should we encourage people to reduce car usage? Transport is a very big factor in terms of our emissions, so we need to consider what we do to reduce that. Another major source in Devon is energy use in both our domestic and our public buildings. And so how can we best encourage people in Devon to retrofit insulation and non-carbon emitting forms of energy to heat and power their homes? Really important for us, because actually we've got a predominantly old, particularly energy inefficient housing stock across the county as well, and so our buildings do make a significant contribution to our carbon emissions. And lastly, and again, one that's controversial, is the degree to which we should encourage onshore wind energy in Devon. How acceptable is that? And we all know, in terms of visual amenity, wind turbines, for instance, are very divisive. I won't say they're Marmite. Some people are absolutely beautiful and elegant, and to other people they're a complete blight on the landscape. And really, I think we want to help you to help us understand what the kind of appetite is for using land in Devon for net zero or close to net zero energy production. So your recommendations will be very carefully considered, and your conclusions will be turned into an implementation plan and a set of implementation actions. We want you to feel that there's something concrete that comes out of your deliberations. We will then consult with the public on the best way to implement those things that you come forward with in your recommendations, and those actions will be added to the final to the interim plan to produce the final carbon plan. So we've got the interim carbon plan, which we can get, there's quite a bit of stuff in there which we can get on with doing. And I do want to reassure you that the partners within the climate emergency are very keen to move quickly on those things we can move quickly on. And those further actions which we need to take on top of those things which we can agree on fairly readily, your deliberations will deliver some more recommended actions, which will then go out to public consultation next spring, and hopefully will be incorporated finally in the plan. I think that might be on the next slide, Emily, I'm not sure, but that for next September. I've got the screens on the right hand side, so I can't see the entire picture, but it is September next year. That seems like a long time, particularly as we started this process in 2019. But I think we're very keen, and to use the sort of quote of the government, that we want to be taking irreversible and really well backed up steps in what we do. And so when we agree something, it's got a really, really solid foundation, and then we can move quickly in order to implement. We all know that whether we like it or not, doesn't matter how worthy the subject is, any process that we adopt in sort of public life is open to challenge and potentially open to legal challenge for those who might not agree with its conclusions. So we have thought carefully that we want to take the time to get it right and to make sure that the process we follow in engaging the public, whether in the wider consultations, working with you in the Citizens' Assembly, in the production of the plan, is as watertight as we can make it and does not get bogged down with legal challenge, which would delay us still further. So I hope that's a helpful introduction to your work. It's hugely important, and the commitment that you're making is fantastic, and you're doing a great service to your fellow 801,930 co-residents of this wonderful county, and I really look forward to seeing the output of your deliberations, and I hope you enjoy it as well. I hope you have some fun, notwithstanding the challenges of using the technology.